Hey everyone, it's Vixian, and today we'll do a review on Amazon's upcoming MMO, New World. We'll cover everything from the activities and the target audience to the combat mechanics and progression systems, in an attempt to give you an idea of what to expect from the game as a whole. By the end of this video, you'll hopefully be able to tell whether you like the game or not, and if it's worth a purchase. Here's a summary of what we'll talk about, and I've also added timestamps so you can easily navigate throughout the video. So let's begin by analyzing the genre of the game and which audience Amazon is trying to appeal to. When New World first appeared, it was marketed as a hardcore, full-loot, open-world survival game with focus on PvP along with small amounts of PvE content. This is not the case anymore, and while it kept some elements from its former version, the game you will see on launch is something entirely different. The game now offers an expansive open world to explore, with no loading screens aside from a few dungeons, and the PvP is opt-in only, so you can decide whether or not you want to fight other people. We'll go more in depth on the PvP and PvE systems later on. In my opinion, it is targeted towards the casual player that has to work or study, but with enough skill floor to cater to more hardcore players as well. I believe everyone will be satisfied. It is a buy-to-play game with a cash shop that is said to feature only cosmetics and no XP boosts or pay-to-win items. Next up, let's discuss what I believe to be New World's strongest point, the social elements. This is a key selling point for me, since it brings back a nostalgic feeling from the older days of MMOs, where you actually interacted with people and there weren't any group finders or a lot of theme park mechanics. So, first of all, there is an in-game voice chat, and while sometimes people can ruin your day by doing things like blasting music through their mics, it provides a solid foundation for socializing in-game. Not only that, but as I mentioned earlier, there is no group finder for dungeons in the game, so you'll have to meet and talk with people if you want to do group content, so I suggest joining a friendly company and playing along with them. You can always experience everything as a solo player, but as is the case with most online RPGs, grouping up makes things smoother and more fun. As part of the game's core systems, there are also 3 factions that will contribute to bringing people together through a variety of activities. For example, there are territories you can conquer for your faction that will provide bonuses for that specific faction. We'll dive into more details for territories in a later video. It's not all sunshine and rainbows though. I believe there's a lot to be worked on, especially for companies, as there's not a whole lot of activities that bring people together in that department. Maybe some kind of weekly guild quest system could help. I'd love to see Amazon implementing a mechanic like this, as it would strongly contribute to breaking the ice for many companies trying to socialize. Now, let's talk about another one of my favorite parts, the environment. Let me preface this by saying, it has been a long time since I felt so immersed into a game. New World does a wonderful job in that department, and for a good reason. First of all, the UI does its job in being practical, but it also avoids being invasive at the same time. It's as if it's blending in with the environment. I mean, it doesn't even have a minimap. The setting is also pretty interesting. New World takes place in the 17th century on a fictional and supernatural island known as Eternum, which is part of an alternate history during the time of exploration. I won't say more on this in order to not spoil the fun for you guys. Regarding the graphics, it's a game where the difference between low and ultra graphics is immense. The good news is that you can hit 30 to 40 FPS with a low-end graphics card like a 1050 Ti on high settings, and you won't see much of a difference. During PvE and questing, I strongly suggest you guys play on high even if you drop below 60 FPS, and lower it if you plan on doing PvP activities. As I said before, the game is fully open world aside from a few instance dungeons, which means you can literally walk from one side of the map to the other without passing through a single loading screen. This helps a lot with keeping a constant sense of immersion going and makes the world feel more alive as well. Now, as for the monsters you'll encounter in the wild, unfortunately there are not many archetypes in the game, but those that exist are well designed. I'm sure more will come over time, so it does not worry me that much. Finally, the ambience and music in New World is phenomenal. Sometimes, during a foggy night, you can literally hop inside an inn and listen to the crackling sound the fireplace makes. Try it, it'll make you feel at ease and maybe bring back some Dark Souls bonfire vibes. There is a lot of attention to detail, such as the echo the mining pick makes when farming near a mountain. There's always room for improvement, of course, and we can only hope they can keep on bringing us new and original areas to explore. Up next, we have the lore and the story. I will be blunt here and say that while the story quests are not bad, they are not great either. We have a lot of voice acting, which is always a good thing, but most of it feels out of place to me. The main story feels short and leaves you wanting to know more, but I suppose this will be worked on over time as new content comes out. Side quests are your typical generic MMO tasks where you are expected to kill 10 of these, gather 5 of that, or talk to another guy. Something that stood out to me during the beta was that the world is filled with pages you can discover and read that have small stories or hints that compile to a bigger picture. The lore looks promising and can be greatly expanded in the future. There is a ton of stuff left uncovered, which we will find out later down the line, so for any of you that enjoy a good story, I suggest diving into that as well. Alright, now let's talk about a topic that I believe most of you are more interested in, PvE content and activities. The game has to offer exactly what you would expect from an MMORPG and more. Most of your time in the beginning of your journey will revolve around questing, crafting and gathering, as these are the core parts of the game's mechanics. Trading will also be huge, as the banking system in New World is not global. You actually have a different storage crate and trading post for each zone, which might provide you with incentive to do muling runs and sell materials at another zone for a higher price. There are also 5-man dungeons and world bosses you can do, but there are no traditional big group raids yet, which might be a good thing, as this tends to burn people out after a while. After running a few dungeons in the beta, I came to the conclusion that the game has a good base for amazing PvE content, but the current iteration is lacking. Since the game does not provide you with a complex rotation, you can expect most PvE encounters to revolve around doing mechanics right and playing the game instead of the UI. Additionally, there is a feature called Invasions, which is basically a tower defense type of activity that involves 50 players defending a fort from hordes of enemies. These seem to be a little overtuned currently, but fun nevertheless. And for those of you that like games in which you can have a house, good news. New World is one of them. You can buy a house in any area you want, and many players can buy the same house, but only the one with the highest decoration score will be displayed on the server. The rest will only be visible by their owners or tenants. Now let's talk about PvP, which is most likely the game's selling point. It's where it truly shines and where it does things differently from the competition. The game provides purely action combat with a very high skill floor, but is also simple enough for beginners to have an impact in fights. Most people compare the combat to Dark Souls, but I personally think it's way more fast-paced than that in higher levels. For those of you that like playing snipers in FPS games, you can pretty much play New World with only ranged weapons, and while they are much slower than your AK-47, they do a good job at catering to different playstyles. For instance, the musket is a hit-scan very long-range weapon, while the bow is a projectile-based weapon. You can also hide in bushes in this game, which sets the scene for ambush or hit-and-run types of gameplay. As of today, the types of PvP activities are as follows. We have Outpost Rush, which is a 20 vs 20 endgame siege type battleground for max level players to compete in. Faction Wars, which is a 50 vs 50 mass scale fight for controlling and defending territories. You also have your typical 1 vs 1 duels, and you can also opt in by flagging for outdoor PvP and fight versus the opposing factions. I heard rumors about 2v2 and 3v3 arenas coming in the future, and about a more structured environment with leaderboards and rankings, but we'll have to wait and see, one can hope. Next up in our list, we have the class system. This might come as a surprise, but there is actually no class system in the traditional sense in New World. Instead, the weapons you choose determine what skills you will have. You can swap between two weapons, so you can mix and match any kind of playstyle you'd like. And each weapon has active skills you can use. Also, as a quick note, this game follows the Holy Trinity system, which means players can choose to play as tanks, healers or DPS roles. While there are not many choices right now for those, I believe we'll be getting more in the future. And next up, we got progression systems. There are three main types of progression you will encounter. First up, we got the attribute system, in which you can invest points into your character's strength, dexterity, intelligence, focus and constitution. Each one of those will give you certain advantages. You start with 5 at level 1 and get more points to spend as you level up, and you can also respec those later on for a fee. Then there's trade skills, which are your typical MMO professions, on which, by the way, Amazon has done a phenomenal job. For me, this was the first game where gathering and crafting didn't feel like a chore. I strongly suggest you guys give it a shot even if you're not into crafting. And finally, we have weapon mastery. You can level your weapon mastery by attacking monsters, and you can also level all weapons on one character. Leveling up weapons gives you points, and each weapon has 2 skill trees with passive and active abilities on which you can spend those points. The real grind in this game though, in my opinion, is the territory standings. Think of it as a reputation system in which each level unlocks a small boost for that specific zone. These boosts can come in the form of gathering speed, XP, storage, crafting fee reduction, or territory standing XP. They are minor boosts, but can add up in the long run. So, while there are a lot of positive aspects about New World, there are a few things that could use some work. As a starting point, remember that this is a brand new game that went through a big reshaping process over a small period of time, so we can't expect things to be perfect, but what we as a community can do is provide feedback to the company on things we like or dislike. In that regard, a big issue I see being brought up a lot is that there will not be enough content for us on launch. While that statement varies from player to player, it holds some truth into it. I personally believe the current content will keep people busy for a lot of months and has great replayability. All we can do is wait and see how fast people will burn through the game and if Amazon holds any surprises for us in the near future. Another disadvantage about this game is that questing feels bland. Most quests are your typical move from point A to point B, kill 10 mobs, gather 5 of that, and talk to that guy. PvP has no structure or leaderboards as of today, but this might change down the line, so keep an eye out. There are also a few bugs here and there, such as not being able to use your dodge roll or getting stuck with a fishing pole in your hands instead of a weapon. Nothing game breaking, and I believe this will be fixed with launch. The character creation lacks a lot of depth and customization. It is not something you would expect from an MMO in 2021. On the bright side, Amazon seems to have acknowledged this and will probably rework it in the future. There is also a lot of walking in the game, but there are no mounts to speed things up, so you rely on animation cancelling and weapon traits to traverse the land, which can get pretty tedious. A lot of feedback suggests that dungeons are too easy, but we can't know for sure until we have the official version on our hands. Maybe it was tuned like that, so people don't have an extremely hard time progressing through the beta. Trading posts, also known as auction houses in other games, are specific to territories, so I expect prices to be very volatile and a lot of market manipulation to take place, especially on lower population servers. What is also very concerning is the fact that the game uses easy anti-cheat, which, while is a very strong anti-cheating measure, it has been bypassed a lot of times before, and if they stick to that plan, I predict hordes of bots could fill the servers pretty fast, and with the game having an opt-in PvP system, only Amazon will be able to deal with them. Amazon has also announced that all account bans will be reviewed by a real person before they are implemented, so I honestly hope this will be enough, especially considering that the game will revolve around the economy and crafting. Another concern I have is that a lot of people seem to have technical issues such as bad FPS with good GPUs. Honestly, I think we should wait at least a few weeks before making a judgment on this. These I believe are the main drawbacks of the game, but there are some smaller ones, like for example the game not having a barber shop, so you can't recustomize your character. So, should you buy the game or not? Before giving you guys my objective opinion about the game, let me tell you that I will personally play the heck out of the game, and I will also be streaming it on both YouTube and Twitch. I aim for daily content on YouTube, so consider subscribing for guides, news, highlights and more. I'm a new creator and all support is sincerely appreciated. Having said that, if you can look past the downsides we mentioned earlier, I believe you will have a blast playing it. I know $40 or euros might be a lot for some of you guys out there, but even if you decide that you don't enjoy the current iteration of the game, it will most likely keep you busy for at least a couple of months, so I believe your money will not go to waste. And since it's a buy-to-play game, you will also be able to return to it if it has improved in the future. As such, I'd love to hear more pros and cons about the game from you guys in the comments, or about anything that really bothers you with New World. If you want me to work on a specific topic going forward, don't be shy to mention that either. I'm really looking forward to being a part of this great community. Also, if you found this video helpful, please give it a like and share it with a friend. If not, a dislike, and any feedback is highly appreciated. And this marks the end of the video. That's all for today, but I wanted to mention that my company is recruiting. If any of you is interested in joining us, I've posted some links in the description below. Thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you guys on tomorrow's video. Peace.